Hello, modern world history students. Today I'm going to be telling you about some of the ideas behind the Holocaust and how it was carried out. As you know, the main guy responsible for the Holocaust was Adolf Hitler, and he was a strong believer in racial superiority. He believed that the white race, which he called the Aryan race, was the master race, superior to all other races, and that they all must be purged to create a perfect human society. The way he tried to do this was through a process called eugenics. Now, what is eugenics? Eugenics is the process of eliminating certain kinds of people from the gene pool as a way of improving the human race. This was a racially based pseudoscience. In other words, they pretended it was based on real science, but that was just a bunch of hogwash. One method of eugenics the Nazis used was euthanasia. This was a process of painlessly killing people who were suffering from painful illness or who were in a coma, but the Nazis used it on people with disabilities to weed them out of the gene pool. Nowadays, euthanasia is considered immoral and it's illegal in most countries, and it's only legal to use it on pets who are suffering. You might do it to a really old dog who is sick, but you're not allowed to use it on humans anymore. Back then, the Nazis used it for eugenics. Another way the Nazis practiced eugenics was through sterilization. If someone had a disability, the Nazi scientists would forcibly give women tubal ligations and the men vasectomies. This meant that they could not have children. Nowadays, of course, many people choose to sterilize themselves, but the Nazis were doing this by force without consent of the affected people. They called this program of theirs racial hygiene. Anyone who was disabled, homosexual, or physically deformed could have been sterilized by the Nazis. Did Nazis invent eugenics? No. In fact, they were inspired by the early 1900s United States policies on prohibiting marriage between different races. Segregationist policies in the U.S. were a great inspiration to Adolf Hitler. He really loved what we were doing on our side of the pond, and he wanted to bring some of those ideas over to Nazi Germany. Now let's talk about the idea of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is the specific form of racism directed at Jewish people. This was not a new idea. It had been around since ancient Greece and Rome when some Jews had success in the field of economics. Some ideas behind anti-Semitism were that Jews were inherently greedy and immoral for whatever reason. And there were even conspiracy theories that Jews controlled the banks and were engaged in blood libel, which was the process of killing children and using their blood in satanic rituals. Again, this was all just hogwash and there's no truth to it. But there were unfortunately very real consequences for these very unreal allegations. At first, the Nazis merely imprisoned Jews in ghettos, separating them from the general population, and stripped away their rights through Nuremberg laws, which were kind of like Jim Crow laws, but for Jews. Ghettos were poor areas that were segregated from more affluent ones. All of this culminated in the Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, when Nazis attacked Jewish businesses and homes, starting a war against the Jewish people. After Germany invaded Poland, they set up a majority of their concentration camps there. As part of Adolf Hitler's final solution, as he called it, they murdered about 6 million Jewish people in the most famous genocide of all time. Now let's talk about the Nazi platform, because remember, people actually voted for the Nazis. A political platform is a set of ideas that you run on to get elected to office. The people of Germany were easily convinced by Hitler that Jews were at the core of all of their economic problems. Anti-Semitism and extreme nationalism were in the air, and the effects of the Treaty of Versailles still lingered through Germany's economy. The Nazis wanted to abolish the Treaty of Versailles, require German blood for German citizenship, and mandate that all newspapers be published in German by Germans. The concept of eugenics was a heavy part of the Nazi platform. They accused the Slavs of racial inferiority, giving themselves permission to invade their land. They also had passed a law in 1933 called Law for the Prevention of Progeny of Hereditary Disease, which enforced the sterilization of people with disabilities. The ultimate goal of the platform was to separate Aryan or white people from the inferior races and protect their bloodline from race mixing. The Holocaust was the ultimate culmination of these beliefs. All right, now that I've taught you all of this, you can take the power focus area, World War II, ideas behind the Holocaust.